Welcome back to Animatron University. My name is Jesse Bray, and I'm your instructor. In this video, we're going to talk about finding your story. There are a few things that you need to keep in mind when you're trying to find your story. The three things that I think is important for you to learn is format, the story format and genre of what you're about to tell, creating a theme for your story, and finding conflict. Now, let's pull back. The first point I want to mention about formats and genres. There is an excellent book that I highly recommend called Save the Cat. It is, I would say, the end-all script writing book that if you were ever to read any other book about script writing, that's the one I think you should read. It describes in great detail about how and why and what works within a specific genre. You need to learn these things. You need to learn the fish out of the water story, the monster in the house story. You need to learn the buddy story. You need to see the similarities in these and know that if you're going to be an effective storyteller, you need to take time to do your homework to learn what these things are. Now, in this lecture series, a lot of times I'll talk about ideas that may not be as descriptive as you'd like them to be. The point is to get your mind thinking like a storyteller. Thinking like a storyteller will help you grow. I can't teach you everything. If anything, I can only get your appetite started. One of the things to think about when you're coming up with your story, thinking of the format, is your story a Western? And is your story an opera? Now, I'm going to pull back even more. A Western is often a serial story. It starts at any point and ends at any point, but it's a self-contained story that if you are brand new, you can just show up in that serial. Now, a great example of a serial is Star Trek. Star Trek is a serial series. Very often you can pick up any episode of Star Trek and know that you don't need to be reintroduced to every character. You can watch that whole story and it's self-contained. Star Wars, that is a space opera. An opera is a story that it's important for you to know the other details of what's happening. Now, the genre of these stories, both Star Trek and Star Wars, are science fiction, but what you need to know to enjoy them or to fully understand what's happening is always different. A serial versus a opera, a serial has a low amount of commitment by the viewer. This is helpful when it comes to creating good stories. So now you've learned format, series versus opera, and there are other things. You can have non-script, you can have an improv, sketch comedies, sitcoms. These are things that, as we're probably all familiar with them. The animated sitcom. An important thing that you'll find if you read the book Save the Cat, that you should make likable characters. We want to enjoy the story that we're watching, so it's important for us to make characters that are worth watching. You cannot have story without conflict. Robert McKee wrote an excellent book called Story. And it's important for us as storytellers to remember this. If there is no conflict, there's no reason for the story to keep going. If anything, if there's no conflict, there's no story. James Cameron, one of the most prolific filmmakers and most successful filmmakers of our time, wrote and directed Terminator, he did Titanic, Avatar, and one of the things that he would use is he would use a handicapped. Giving your character a handicap is a very quick way to make you like the character. Sometimes that's a literal handicapped, and sometimes that's something as with a character flaw. We can relate to humans having flaws. An important thing to do is to always be learning. For example, in many sitcoms, as you're learning what's happening to the main character, there is a parallel to a B story. You have an A story, that's the one that's most important. You have a B story, which is a behind-the-scenes story, and then you have a C story, which is often not as important. There's three hooks to make your story unforgettable. The three hooks, I would call them the trinity of hooks. It is action, question, danger. If you can add those three things to your story, you're going to get a grip. Now that doesn't always work with every single genre, but in the action movie, if you have action, question, danger, you're going to deliver on the goods. Now remember, a sitcom means situational comedy. Just in life, the whole purpose of a sitcom is to take everyday, seemingly mundane things and make them humorous. The more homework you do about what you are telling a comedy or a tragedy? Are you telling a serial or are you telling an opera? Are you telling a sketch comedy? Is it improv? Learn these genres well, and you will know better how to follow the rules to create excellent stories. Now, you can always break the rules, but you can't break the rules unless you learn them first. I'll see you all later in the course.